Welcome to the second edition of our webinars. My name is Barba Gaoganediwe. I'm the head of destination marketing at Gauteng Tourism. I'm going to be facilitating the session. Can we just check if all our panelists are here? Susan, are you here? And can you just test your mic and check if you are audible?
I'm here. Good morning.
Lovely. Thank you so much for joining us. Is Brajo Motsogi here? Okay. Nesang.
Good morning, Baba. I'm right here.
Yeah, we can't see you. We want to see your face.
I have switched on my video.
Okay.
So, I don't know,
thank you. CEO Kona, are you there?
Good morning, Baba. Good morning, colleagues.
So thank you so much. We are just missing representative from Gatoa, Mr. Joe Motsogi. Just to indicate that we had earlier on apologies from their panelists. Some of them have been struggling with power. As you are aware, while we are battling with COVID-19, there are also other underlying challenges with power in the country. So we are hopeful that he will be able to join us. Today we are focusing on associations. We're also focusing on our regions. Just again, ground rules, colleagues, if we can switch off our mics. Can we please switch off our mics? We will use the panel provision there below to raise hands to feed in specific questions. We'll also be taking commentary from our social media channels. So if there are questions that members, colleagues wants to pose, please feel free to use the facility below to fill in the questions. We are also aware that the tourism sector is made up of a variety of associations. Not all of them could make the panel today. So some of the associations that are here, please feel free to share in your inputs, use the facility below. We'll also give you later on a chance to share in information, insights on how you have been coordinating. If everyone is here, can I just get an indication from our technical team if everyone is here, and we can start?
We are good to go, Mr. Barba. Our session's in order, and thanks everyone for the turnout. Really great, with a turnout of 90 participants on this call. Well done. So I'll let you kick off.
Oh, thank you so much. Like I've indicated, we are in the second session of our 4-part series of webinars. We're quite excited that you have taken time to join us this morning. Because it's a webinar platform, we are joined by colleagues from all over the world with the help of technology. That's very encouraging. We're looking forward to your insights. We're looking forward to your contribution. We're also looking forward to learn from yourselves how you've been coordinating efforts. Allow me to abuse this platform. Before we start with the session, can we take a few minutes of silence in honor of everyone who have perished due to COVID-19 in the country, worldwide? We have known the devastation also, as we bow our heads, we think of the families and everyone who have lost their loved ones. We also mark and recognize the scourge of femicide that continue to plague our country, with women and children being abused and being killed. So can we take this moment, we observe a moment of silence in recognition of all that we have perished, and also calling in divine intervention to help us through this. Can we take a few seconds of silence? Thank you very much. We once again welcome those who have just joined us. Just to indicate that we have Susan Marais among our panelists. We have Yoland Kona, the CEO of Gauteng Tourism. We have Nesang Maleka from Youth in Tourism Transformation. Is Brajo there?
Unfortunately, Brajo is not able to join us. He's let us know that he's having severe challenges with health, but we'll try his best to get online.
Okay. Who else is also there?
All our guests are on at the moment. Ms. Yoland, Ms. Suzanne, as well as Ms. Wendy and Mr. Maleka.
Okay. Welcome, Ms. Wendy from the Restaurant Association of South Africa. Just
Hello.
to kick off, can you just say hi to everybody?
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting us today.
Great. Maybe just to kick off, colleagues, friends, everybody else who have joined us, and taking the point that the country marks Youth Month in June. So let's allow Nesang to be the one who kick off the session in recognition of his youthful contribution to the discussion. Nesang, thank you very much for joining us once again. Happy Youth Month to you and to all the youthful people in this session. Tell us more about your organization. What do you guys do? How do we join? And what have been your key focus, especially now as we fight the scourge of COVID-19?
Good morning, Barba. Good morning to guests who have joined us on this webinar. Before answering you, let me take this opportunity to pay homage to the young people, the generation of 76, that ensured we understand as young people our generational mission to achieve a better but informed society. And at the same time, let me encourage young people in their own spaces, the need for us to really fight this scourge of gender-based violence, as it does not reflect well on our country, but it does not reflect well on the international markets that want to see South Africa as a key destination, which mainly includes their own security, especially that of the female travelers. In terms of the Tourism Transformation Council of South Africa, it is a body that was enacted, or a council that was enacted by virtue of the BBB Act. DTI had then encouraged each department, it must establish a monitoring and coordination body that must oversee the enactment of BBB in various sectors. The key role of the Charter Council is to provide guidance on sector-specific matters affecting BBB entities within the tourism sector, of which we compile reports on the progression or the challenges that we are meeting in terms of the transformation of the sector. And so for we had lobbied government that a youth voice needs to be present to challenge some of the policies that have been there since our own democracy, that do not really speak to how young people participate at a broad level in terms of policy-making decisions, but at the lower level where associations are based. There are youth organizations that are involved in tourism, but there are associations that have been within the industry that haven't really included the energy and diverse thinking of young people for them to actually coordinate and be futuristic about what the role of associations and forums should be in tourism. Let me stop right there, Mr. Barba.
Thank you, Nesang. CEO Kona, surely as we mark Youth Month, young people play a crucial role in bringing in the energy, zest, and enthusiasm required. And also the sector employs a lot of young people. What are some of the initiatives in the organization that the organization have been coordinating? I can think of the Safety Monitors program that helps in crowding young people into the sector.
Good morning, everyone, once again, on what feels to me like another very cold Monday morning. Just to kick off and say that if I look around the room, the virtual room that we have here, it's very exciting. It just demonstrates that we're all in this together as the tourism family. I see Paul is smiling very nicely there. It's very heartwarming to see our colleagues in the family from far and wide, from Cape Town to Harties, colleagues from the Marais sector here as well. And I'm very encouraged by our young people representing our youth and women in tourism. And I think you're absolutely right, Barba, in terms of the futuristic model of tourism, women, but also youth play a key role. I think as the Gauteng Tourism Authority, we are working in partnership with the National Department of Tourism on the Tourism Monitors project, where we deploy young people in the tourism space to our sites and attractions across the province in the different regions. And we are working quite closely with the National Department of Tourism to reconfigure that project for a more meaningful contribution in terms of the uptake of young people within the youth within the tourism space, particularly young women in the space as well. And I think one of the key things we've picked up throughout all of this, and I think we can all attest to this, is the fact that the model of tourism for the future of the sector has to look very differently. One of the initiatives we are currently working on is looking at how we can re-engineer young people within the space from a digital point of view, because I think we all can agree that the tourism sector will not look the same post-COVID, which means that we need to do business differently. The traditional ways of tourism, hospitality, has to look differently, and we need to be able to place youth within that futuristic model whilst embracing the fourth industrial revolution. So that's another initiative that we are thinking about, and we will do so in partnership with our young people. But I think that there's another interesting project that we conceptualized just before COVID hit all of us, and that was to look at how we bring young people into the space by establishing youth cooperatives across the different regions, because we know that our tourism infrastructure is not all in the state that it should be in. So how do we create space for young people to come in and help us redirect our tourism infrastructure, particularly at a local level, so that we enable them to become sustainable youth employment spaces that begins to assist and redirect tourism going forward. So that's an initiative we are quite excited about in working in partnership with communities and local tourism. So I think, yeah, those are a couple of the things that we are busy with, but obviously the world is our oyster. So there's much to be done. And these are just 2 or 3 of the initiatives that we have started thinking through and working on. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Suzanne, if we were to bring you in from the side of associations, especially during the time of crisis, associations plays a crucial role. You disseminate information to members, you keep members informed, but you also draw inspiration and courage from your own members. If you are able to share more insight about your organization, what have you guys been up to in terms of the current challenges? There have been no tourism activities. So I guess it's been very frustrating for you guys.
Yes, Barba, absolutely. A very frustrating time. So as the Tshwane Tourism Association, we are a non-profit association coordinated by the private sector to promote our beautiful city of Tshwane, the entire metropolitan area. We are an umbrella association connecting government, residents, and visitors on tourism-related matters. And as such, we are a channel of communication, industry information, and a platform for associated tourism businesses to connect and to benefit from each other. So important during this time for all of us to really connect and share information. This is not the time to be precious. So some of the things we have been doing, Baba, we have been keeping busy. We have been working tirelessly on behalf of our members to interact with the larger South African tourism community and to adapt to the current situation. So some of the ways we've been doing that is through communication, through communicating verified information and trustworthy information through our COVID-19 webpage. You can move to the next slide for me there. So our website, tswanetourism.com, has a beautifully updated list of resources that everyone can use. So we've been really busy with that. We've also been extremely busy on our WhatsApp groups, on our social media, on our on our newsletters, dealing with all our members. And then, of course, collaboration. We've been working closely with the Tourism Business Council of South Africa, driving engagement with the industry to look at post-COVID-19 protocols. These have been so very important. We've also been collaborating and working wonderfully with the Restaurant Collective. So our restaurant chapter started interacting with them a while ago, and we have just found, due to their open and collaborative culture, we immediately proceeded to work together with them. So we've been lobbying government, we've been sharing resources, and we've really been bringing the restaurants in and around Gauteng and the country together in a way that I believe it's been really, if ever, been done before. Then, of course, we have been lobbying. We've been lobbying and collaborating with national government, with property owners associations, regulatory bodies, and the other private sector parties who levy fees and costs on our industry. This is all for us to survive throughout this difficult time. Some of the issues that has presented challenges, which I'm sure everybody here can relate with. We've been dealing with insurance companies. We have been helping our members with their UIF TASH applications. And then we've also been dealing with landlords and assisting with legal help. We can talk a lot about what we've been doing, but I believe the most important is going forward. What are we doing going forward? So first of all, we're really researching and spending a lot of time looking at international trends. What is happening in the rest of the world? We are looking at China with particular interest since they were first, and then also Europe, especially their restaurant trends that is coming out now is very interesting. We are making sure that we keep on growing. We are still growing our members. I started my own business 5 years ago, and I found very quickly this is not an industry to face on your own. You can move forward to the next slide for me there, please. So yes, we've really been growing our new members, more input, more information, and more growth for all of us. And then, of course, going forward, we are just looking at adapting and recovery. Adapting to the current situation, focusing on a proactive recovery process. this industry, we are some of the most creative people in this country. Think out of the box, find new ways so that we can all adapt and recover, share ideas. Please, guys, you are not in this on your own. We are all together. You can contact us. Our contact details is there on the next slide. You can visit our website, and then you can also contact us at the Tshwane Tourism Association office. On that website, tshwanetourism.com/COVID-19, you will find a lot of relevant information. Please check it out.
Okay.
And shout if you need any help.
No, that's fine, Suzanne. You are not going anywhere, so you are still here. So people will still get a chance to interact with you. Maybe let's bring on Ms. Wendy Alberts. Ms. Wendy, you should quite be excited. A lot of lobbying behind the scene, but I guess we are also welcoming the measures that have been announced with caution, trying to balance livelihoods and health of our people. What have you guys been up to, and how do you continue to ensure that you lobby for the sector?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us, and welcome to all the other people on the webinar. It's been an interesting 15 weeks that we're certainly learning a lot of new things, and whilst we are not COVID experts, I think we certainly have learned about collaboration and how it's very important to have transparent and information of integrity that is verified. So I think I support a lot of the communication that the lovely lady from the TTA just dispensed, and I think there are a lot of restaurant lobbying groups at the moment, which has been very good for government, because I certainly can see that the improvements on the industry to have a voice has certainly been recognized. And I think for years and years, we've been trying to get acknowledgement of what an important contributor we are to employment as well as to the GDP. And I think that there's certainly finalization now that they do adhere and understand how important we are. I also think it's really important that we've seen how iconic the amount of restaurants are that we've got within the tourism belt, and how complex that has become by losing so many of those restaurants. So we certainly are trying to look at a revival structure. So whilst we've been doing the same amount of work, I guess, as the other lobbying bodies, in terms of dispensing information, putting the necessary SOPs together, working with international partners, working with international players like Ecolab and IHSS to bring the protocols and to bring worldwide protocols. We've also been engaging with some 13 associations that we have relationships with around the world, bringing pertinent information and bringing content and real content, I think, from what is happening on the door-to-door daily lives of restaurants and how they've been financially crippled, and trying to understand those measurements in order to look for solutions and how we mobilize the industry. So we've certainly tackled everything right from the landlords. We have had very good relationships, and we've put agreements together with SAPOA and the Shopping Centre Council. We've also engaged with the insurances. We brought a lot of that information through to Maleka, who's assisting with the court case on that, to ensure that those policies that we've had the luxury of paying for is administered and paid out. We are engaging with the banks now to re-look at their financial model in terms of the lending criteria. I mean, restaurants need lending in order to move forward. We've started engagements with the local minister, small business tourism minister, on what the relief mechanisms are. And we're starting to chat to local authorities like yourself in terms of what is the resuscitation plan that we've got going forward, in helping these restaurants that are iconic to the industry, in mobilizing and staying open. Furthermore to that, we've obviously been working quite hard with TERS and UIF. We've got a task team, and we've got a task team on both sides. So we've been quite fruitful with payments on that. It's important that we get those payouts through. It gives support to the restaurateur in terms of their viability and also their relationship with their staff, which is important. We've been dispensing some lovely information on all sorts of resources that they can use to reopen their businesses. So we brought a lot of players on board that have brought the necessary components to reopen the restaurants, right from the delivery side of businesses to takeaway to the bottle store part, and obviously now in the reopening. We've doing a lot of retraining at the moment, and we're bringing new content on board. Ecolab is phenomenal. They've got some lovely retraining programs that they're providing for the industry, beautiful videos, etc. So I think we've covered every part and every turn. We've been quite on top of things, and bringing the necessary dispensated information immediately to the forefront of the industry and ensure that we engage with the necessary partners to do that. So, you know, we're now excited about the news to reopen. We will continue to educate government and educate different players on the financial model moving forward. We're doing a lot of financial resources at the moment on how we look at transforming a restaurant business to make it viable moving forward, as well as the accumulative debt and obviously the large challenges to tackle those heavy leases that we don't really want to go back to. So we're looking at mobilizing the financial model moving forward and working with some very clever partners that we've got. We're also engaging with international investors to come in to look at the iconic restaurants that are on the tourism belt that are also very pertinent to the landscape of South Africa, on how we can bring a model into South Africa that will survive those restaurants.
Okay.
So we've got all the health and hygiene and all those kind of things, the relationship with government, the training modules and manuals, and we are here for the industry. You know, we support a large portion of the industry, and we've been going for a very long time, and we certainly hope to engage with other industry associations and try and work together, that an industry that has certainly got more leverage than being more diluted if we talk about collaboration. Absolutely.
And among others, you provide a huge platform for employment of young people, young women in particular. Speaking about transformation, what are some of the initiatives currently now to really keep these young people on the jobs? The finance minister spoke about moving into the sector, moving into a post-COVID environment where we prioritize South Africans, we produce local, we consume local. What are some of the initiatives from your side?
There's so much work that we've realized that needs to be put forward in terms of the employment part of our sector. I think the critical part is to get industry open to understand how much talent is left in terms of the unemployment part, and what are we going to do with the staff that cannot return back to work. I think there's a very, very important part in terms of skills retention that we need to take care of, and how we work with the unemployed part of that to bring them back. We have got some lovely partners that we are putting in terms of qualifying and bringing credentials on board, so that when restaurants need to change over a shift and their shifts have been infected, we certainly have worked with other employment sectors in the industry that can then bring a new shift on board, so that that restaurant doesn't have to close down. It's a very, very small part of moving forward. I think the more critical part is to get the restaurants open, to also do the skills and to reignite those training and the retraining programs that we've got. Now, staff have been sitting at home for a very long time. We're also doing a lot of psychological content that's coming through, also to bring that wellness and the emotional wellness back into the industry, and to motivate and inspire people to enjoy and to love the industry as what we did before, so that we can take it forward, that the consumer behavior is also met in terms of the staff engagement. And thereafter, we are going to work with the different regional and municipal departments in order to talk about how we are going to do staff retention and what we're going to do with the unemployment sector, as well as the new parts of industry in terms of retraining. Imminent conversation that we're currently having is to develop the proper critical framework for a qualified waiter, that we can have a universal waiter qualification as a trades qualification. I think that is part of moving forward in mobilizing the industry.
Thank you so much. It's quite exciting, and I guess everybody, colleagues, are looking forward to that. While the sector employs a lot of people, there's a lot of work to formalize the sector, formalize criteria, and once again be on top of mind. Speaking about being on top of mind, we are going to look into and remind ourselves into what makes this Gauteng, this destination, still a leading destination, what imagery. We have been locked into our own houses, into our own spaces. So let's take this moment to have a look at the spaces of our beautiful province. Let's take a short while and look at the promo video for the destination.
Nesang, your preferred business events destination. We mean business.
We mean business indeed, ladies and gentlemen, but we can only mean business if we work together. I guess with those imagery we have, it has just tantalizes our appetites to want to go out and really explore our beautiful destination. But we need to follow the protocols, be optimistic, baby steps towards recovery. As we continue with our conversation, Nesang, we have a point from Ekurhuleni Tourism, Mr. Fika Mukwana from Ekurhuleni Regional Tourism Association wants to know what are you doing to address growing inequalities in the sector? As you also elaborate on that, you can also indicate what has been some of your challenges with regard to coordinating COVID-19 relief measures information to your members.
Thank you very much, Barba. Thank you for the question. I think let us look at the current state of associations and forums within the province, given the diverse nature of tourism and its offerings. Now, as a Transformation Tourism Council of South Africa, ours is to monitor and provide guidance in terms of triple BEE. And one of the discussions or the inputs that we're making is that there is a real need for direct coordination amongst associations and forums, conversations that involve a sharing of knowledge and a sharing of practices that must really assist our sector to win the confidence of health and safety scientists or those involved in ensuring that we maintain health and safety. And so part of the work that we're saying is associations and forums need to really involve and include young people in conversations of collaborations, but of knowledge sharing. In this case, how would you then place each responsibility of each association and forums within the broad framework of reigniting tourism? And in the Tourism Transformation Council of South Africa, one of the repeated conversations we have is that a reignition of the tourism sector cannot be exclusively based on those who are aware of what's happening, but those who are aware of the needs of the sector. Part of which is then saying the reignition of tourism must include those who were previously disadvantaged within the sector, but those who were excluded within the market growths and the markets that we attract to South Africa. So it's important that associations and forums really share and collaborate on strategies, but on a uniform approach into growing the sector without the exclusion of young people. Young people form the basis or the majority basis of the population, both in the province and in the country. And so it is important that we bring on young people around conversations because they may share some innovative ideas that may be used by forums and associations to answer some of the questions that most people are sort of figuring out or still questioning. As we had said, Barba, Tito Mboweni spoke of what the new economy may look like. And the new economy cannot exclude the participation of young people at a broader economic level, meaning from the tourism transformation surveys that we continue to have, there has been a large emphasis on young people being categorized as just employees and not business people. Now, for instance, for myself, I run a business out of the Soweto Adventure Towers. And I know I've met a number of young people who run their own businesses. And part of the conversations we're having is how do we really use technology to push and advance the experience of South Africa, but the experience of Africa, providing South African and African technology solutions, not really borrowing from international markets, that have been feeding how we really associate ourselves with technology development in tourism. So I think that would be my basic answer to the question, emphasizing the need for forums and associations to sit down and collaborate and share notes on what is the uniform approach we can take.
No, thank you. As we bring in CEO Kona, part of what the GTA does is to work closely with associations, and what we're getting from the session today is that associations plays a crucial role in info dissemination. What are some of the initiatives that are at the GTA around working with associations, sharing information, but using them as transit points to reach communities, as tourism is not just private sector driven, it's government-led and community-based.
Thanks, Barba. I think you're absolutely right. And I must echo the sentiments expressed by Nesang in terms of the role of associations, not just in light of sharing knowledge and practices around the COVID pandemic and reopening of the sector. But I think, as you rightly say, tourism is government-led, it's industry-driven, but critically it's community-based. And as GTA, we've recognized that in the last few years, we've not done enough to play a coordinating role in terms of the tourism space within Destination Gauteng. So what we've started on about 3 weeks ago is literally revisiting the institutional framework, for want of a better word or phrase to coin what it is to literally look at how we begin to bring together both the public and the private sector in terms of tourism, so that we are able to look at how we share best practices, how we collectively collaborate and deal with challenges and new issues as they emerge for the sector. So literally, we are looking at putting up the institutional framework by the middle of July, so that we begin to bring on board our associations at the local levels, but also the different chapters in the province, but also private sector largely. And I think we've seen in the last while that we cannot do this as GTA or as a Department of Economic Development. We all have to be in it together in order to drive tourism in the destination. And obviously we can't underscore the importance of working even more closely with our national counterparts, because tourism in and of itself, I think in Gauteng, we have changed the view that we have, where tourism is not just some fun activity where it's all good and well to be visiting. But I think the importance of tourism as a sector is explicit within our institutional framework, and the role that it plays within trade and investment and growing the economy broadly in the province. So I think the institutional framework that we are working on at the moment, we will obviously cascade that into the public and the private sector largely, with inputs into what it should be and how it should be driven within the province. That will be done through various engagements in the next couple of weeks. But I think that then will assist us in making sure that the collaboration actually does happen at the right level, working with the associations, obviously, in terms of roles of communities. And we have started with that trajectory, for example, in Sedibeng, where we've noted how we begin to revisit the struggle route, for example, working closely with the association and the local government there. So I think that's the approach that we are taking going forward. Thanks, Barba.
Thank you so much. Maybe if we're to bring you again, Wendy, there is a general agreement that domestic tourism will anchor a recovery. But equally, we find ourselves in a space where domestic markets prefer, especially in Gauteng, prefer to go out. We have the highest per capita income. So we make money here, but after we've made money, we want to go out, spend it outside the province. Are there specific initiatives aimed at incentivizing local markets, making locals tourists in their own backyard, making locals your priority patrons in terms of your facilities? Are there any specific programs that you and your members will be instituting to make sure that we get locals becoming tourists and explorers in their own backyard?
Absolutely. I think one of the discussions that ourselves and GT have been having for a very long time is the development of local tourism. It's an imperative part of restaurants in South Africa, And it's imperative to put the experience of many restaurants on the tourism map. You know, we've got beautiful places like Maboneng, we've got beautiful places that we need to bring like Pretoria, we've got the Parkhurst Strip. So there's a lot of densely developed areas of restaurants that have got unique restaurant offerings. And we've spoken about bringing this in over weekends and bringing the trade as well as cross-border trading as well, in terms of bringing the closer areas from your Magaliesburg through to your Rustenburg through to other parts as part of us, Hartbeespoort Dam sector. So these are all parts that we've been in discussion with that we completely need to expand on. We need to look at ways on how we resuscitate the local tourism and bring local tourism as part of the process moving forward on how we save restaurants. I think restaurants are certainly going to rely, you know, if I look at the Hartbeespoort belt right now, I mean, it relies heavily on tourism. So those restaurants are completely shut. But once the cross-border opens, we'll be able to certainly improve on the tourism part there. And there's a lot of other parts within Joburg as well that we need to expand on, the new town and so forth. So we certainly need to continue with those engagements on how we put them back on the map.
Certainly. Maybe if we were to bring you in, Suzanne, there's a general agreement that relief measures, especially from government funding, will not be enough to cater for everybody in the sector. We are dealing with competing priorities. The health sector needs investment. We need more beds. We need more medical facilities. We need social relief to cater, especially for the vulnerable, the elderly, the unemployed. What have been some of your initiatives to assist members to get information, but also to coordinate their own relief measures to keep the sector going in anticipation of the opening?
Well, before I answer that, I want to, if I may, quickly jump back to the previous question as well and just add on to what Wendy said. I think going forward, and we predict that local tourism will be bigger than ever. People won't have as much dispensable income, and we need to really cater for that and plan for that and take care of our local guests. If you look at it's a big trend also that people will want real value for money and special experiences. And you can just look at the success of things like the Ultimate Pretoria Bucket List and the Ultimate Joburg Bucket List, which was started for tourists to find the best things to do in and around our cities. And that has just really been embraced by local followers to really see as our businesses are opening up, as new offerings are coming through. As hikes opened a couple of weeks ago, those venues that were doing great hikes and safe hikes were just flooded with guests. And those who were ready really had a great opportunity there. And those who were not ready, unfortunately, lost a little bit. And after a time like these past 3 months, we cannot afford to lose on those opportunities. So just speaking to that, keep an eye out what is coming next, what is opening next, and make sure that your product is ready. As to your other question, it's really important for us to represent people from all sectors, which is why the Tshwane Tourism Association has so many different chapters. We all work towards tourism and promoting our beautiful country, our beautiful province, and of course our beautiful capital city in our case. And the more representation we have from different sectors, the more we can speak to their needs specifically. So yeah, I think that's really important.
If I may just quickly add something there, sorry.
Okay.
I think it's also just important that, you know, moving forward, that we really truly make domestic tourism available to the South African. You know, it's been deemed as sometimes very expensive to be able to enjoy those parts of tourism or the experiences that go within tourism. I mean, what we certainly have seen a large part on, an add-on of our businesses is certainly a restaurant's extension into the development of food trucks, into the beautiful markets and the art in the park and the displays and all those elements, which brings the incorporation of all parts of tourism together. So there is that expansion, as well as the pop-up restaurants and the park restaurants, and those parts that are also, I mean, the coffee stations that are the hiking trails and the little guacamole vans, etc. So there is a huge opportunity there also for an employment opportunity for purchasing of those food trucks and for the development of add-on businesses to restaurants.
I can agree more with you, Wendy. Ladies and gentlemen, please use the hashtag GP engages, GP Tourism engages, hashtag visit Gauteng, hashtag GP Tourism engages. Again, use the button below to share in your comment, your commentary. We'll pose it into our guest. We'll also take commentary and input from some of the panel members and some of the people, participants that are here. So we will just select and indicate who can put in their stuff. GP Tourism Engages, that's our website, our hashtag visit Gauteng, so that we are able to track this conversation. We'll again, at the end of this session, package a report back that highlights the key issues that emerged here. We'll send it to all who participate, including all our association, as a form of our newsletter from the session that highlights the way forward, that highlights the contact and key insights from this session, so that we keep the conversation going and it doesn't end here. So make use of the facilities below, keep those conversations going. We can see all of them. We can see also members want to share information, advertise their business, make contact. We really welcome that, and that's the spirit we want to see. CEO Kona, the issues of pricing, especially on the domestic market, as Wendy have indicated, continues to plunge. People prefer to go outside because of the cost, but there are also psychological and just habits that we find amongst ourselves. Barba would prefer to go buy those red bottom shoes than spend money on an experience. How do we change the habits and the spending patterns? We are aware that tourism competes with other sectors. We want to buy expensive bottles of whiskeys, want to buy red bottom shoes, but I guess there is more than value you get out of an experience. How do we encourage locals to really change their habits?
Thanks, Barba. I see you giving me the difficult questions. The other ladies are getting the easier ones with Nesang, just on a lighter note. But I think that it really does come down to how we package the experiences that we want to put out to our domestic market. And I mean, I think I agree that I see one of the comments that were made was around the pricing and how we need to revisit that. And I think we've been having this ongoing conversation internally as well. Right now, disposable income is a challenge. So it's really about profiling the destination and putting out meaningful packages that meet the needs of the domestic market, firstly. But I think it's also about really changing the mindset in terms of from a material output into something that is more experiential. And that really comes down to what is attractive to the consumers, what is attractive to the market that we serve. And I think it really is about, we know, for example, that a lot of what we do now is digital. Everything is digitized. How do we tap into our young people, the millennials, and make this attractive to them in terms of what their interests are? So I think on one hand, it's about working together with sector around competitive pricing, given where we find ourselves and for the foreseeable future. But I think equally importantly is really looking at what is attractive to our people in the domestic market. And I know that we are saying it's domestic tourism, but it's not enough in terms of turning the tide against the impact of COVID. And hence the conversations around focusing on Africa as well, and extending that footprint a little bit into the continent before we go international. But I think it really is about how we package what we have to offer and make it meaningful. It's about having difficult conversations about making pricing more competitive and easier for the consumer. And I think those are some of the initiatives that we would put forward in an attempt to try and sway our market from where their interests and preferences lie currently to what I think we want them to focus on. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We will now look into some of the tantalizing taste of Gauteng experiences. Sometimes it's also about going out to be there. The only street in the world to have produced 2 Nobel laureates waking up in the morning and greeting each other, Vilakazi Street, to go there and have the experience, you absolutely pay nothing to get into that wonderful street that is also featured in the latest edition of the Monopoly. So we really welcome these initiatives by the sector to start marketing our facilities. But the point is, you don't pay, you just get into a variety of the restaurants and other experiences there. So it's how we start communicating these availabilities. So let's again whet our appetite before we get into the way forward. How do we coordinate relief measures? What are some of the challenges? With a clip on the taste of Gauteng.
We'll bring in our clip shortly. Mr. Barba, I'll continue to allow you talking through our restaurant variety and offerings as you have been, and we will bring that in a minute or so. Okay, I'm told the kitchen is not ready, so to dish our food. So Wendy, as we speak about kitchens and the like, how do we make sure that your association also reaches down to members, to those small restaurants in our townships, in our little communities, and they feel that they have been represented, they participate? Are there any specific challenges there? And how have you been coordinating specific relief measures, and what has been the impact specifically on restaurants as a result of COVID-19?
I think, again, one of the key things that we have learned, and the learnings have been great opportunities for us to really bring pertinent content back into the industry and be able to self-regulate and formalize a lot of parts of the restaurant sector that has not been properly managed over the years. One of the key things that we have seen through COVID is the shebeens and the taverns certainly have not had necessary attention. I know some years ago we did a beautiful project with the GTA, which was called the Dr. Tavern. I think it certainly is imminent that we pick up on that project again, and we certainly assist those taverns and shebeens in the areas to bring more formality to their business, that they also would have had relief through COVID. What we have certainly seen is we've had a lot of contact with them where they have not been able to access any of the funding or registrations through UIF because they haven't been properly coordinated and they haven't been corporately compliant. So we certainly do need to offer that assistance in bringing the viability of the actual business and the registration of that business to that sector to make it available. There's a lot of work in terms of health, hygiene and standards that need to be implemented and to be made available. We certainly have engaged with partners like SA Breweries and Coca-Cola, who are obviously mass distributors to those areas, to also use their platforms to enable us to be able to get proper content information of how we mobilize as a part of the restaurant sector. Because as we slow down COVID, one of the key things the government has certainly brought to our attention is inclusion of all parts of the restaurant sector. So we have to find ways and smart ways of how we possibly engage with everybody. We are grateful for relationships that we have with the likes of Ecolab and various other partners that have certainly given the IP to the industry. And the more availability we have of content information that is not exclusive just for our members, and we made the decision, whatever we have available, it's available for the industry, regardless whether you're a member of ours or not, and whether you're a competing association of ours or not. The information is available, it's been aligned to international standard, and it's there ready for the upliftment of the industry. And if there's anybody who's got input on that, or anybody who can further distribute that information, we are certainly open to receiving your assistance in the dispensation of that.
Thank you so much. There's a question here, Wendy, from Bert, and he's saying, how do we communicate and send out reassuring messages that our restaurants, our facilities are safe? Because in a crisis, everybody is concerned about their health, about their safety. but how do we send reassuring messages to everyone?
So the key and most important part is to follow the protocols and not to try and reinvent the rules, that causes conflict within the way that restaurants are to operate. So that is very important. One is that the protocols, one, from government need to be clearly communicated, and two, they need to be implemented into all restaurants, regardless of the type of restaurant. And I think within each restaurant, the clear communication and consistency of delivery of those regulations need to be adhered to. So we need to ensure that we meet the standards that are in place, and if there's necessary signage or sanitization and the dispensers that are available, we need to ensure that it's to an agreed standard within the industry that makes patrons feel safe when they come into our environment, that the consistency, whether they work into a coffee shop or to a fine dining, the protocols are executed in the same manner, and that we need to do religiously, and we've got to keep doing training and retraining and make training available, that the more education is available to everybody out there. So I know Ecolab is very fruitful in ensuring that we're going to be able to have these platforms and to make videos available on cell phones, that we can get the consistency of the message out there. The next part is also for bigger brands that have got the available resources to start making the communication. So not necessarily only about the branding of the particular business, but also about the message in terms that there is consumer confidence, to bring government confidence as well, that they also are supporting the fact that we are opening so we can continue to bring more people back into our businesses and more staff back into our businesses, and also to have clear, honest communication and to be able to truly give the staff a platform where they feel that their jobs are safe. The TERS and non-payment of UIF has certainly left people feeling very vulnerable. And, people haven't been able to have access to the entitlement of them to appreciate their livelihood. 15 weeks later, I don't need to tell everybody on the platform we're all part of this, but it certainly doesn't give confidence to our staff members. So it's important that we as employees ensure that we give the comfort to staff to know that it is safe enough for them to be able to tell us if they are not well. And these are processes we need to take from here forward. We need to build in the transparency, integrity, and confidence of the industry, both to staff and both to the consumer.
Absolutely. I'm told we can now tantalize your appetite before lunch. We can have the taste of Gauteng.
Okay. Yes, we are getting there. Sometimes when you want to eat, your appetite is there, and then it may not always happen. So what we will do is, we will share our screen this way. Give me a moment while I bring up this video for you and share the sound. Here we go. Let's give you another taster. Mr. Barba, what else to show our guests? I know there's a favorite one for the team that they've told me about, which we'd like to bring on.
Let's take it and then we continue with the conversation.
Sure.
That's okay. We are ready, I guess, ready for lunch. Nesang, if we're to bring you in as we continue with the conversation, the issue about access and the use of technology, not only for young people, but the broader industry, has come to the fore again as a result of COVID-19. Are you embedding access to technology, bridging the digital divide as part of your transformative initiative?
Answer, Barba. I think, as you note, access to information has become really crucial in terms of understanding where we are as a sector and where we are in our preparations for the reopening of the industry in a broad sense. And some of the conversations we're having is, how are some of the young people from the townships really accessing the conversations around tourism, especially for those who are studying tourism in the Tibet colleges and the universities, to say there needs to be a rethinking about what is the output that we are seeking to achieve as a sector for young people. And part of this goes back to one of the initiatives that we ran 5 years ago, where we said to the National Department of Tourism, we have a platform that is called National Tourism Career Expo. And that seems to have an absence of innovation and entrepreneurship. How do we bridge the gap? And how do we continue the conversation? So access to information is very crucial, especially from a youth point of view, because as you listen to other panelists speak, you can hear the sense of experience and appreciation of the value of the sector, which is very important for other young people to hear these conversations, especially those who come from very restricted economic opportunities. But for those who are saying, I want to play part of the tourism sector, I want to really participate. Given that we're still celebrating 10 years since the World Cup, it has reinfused the energy, but to really bring back the excitement around what our country offers and what our province really offers. Thank you, Baba.
Thank you so much, Nesang. Speaking about the World Cup, really it was indeed a great platform. But I guess, Nesang, we can relive those moments again. I've seen a lot of esports platform. Can you imagine all the 3 stadiums that we had in Gauteng that hosted the Soccer World Cup now being part of the esports game, people playing PlayStations on those stadiums that hosted Gauteng. So technology really becomes key in our way forward. CEO Kona, how do we ensure that we mobilize other partners? How do we create an enabling environment, especially from the side of government agencies, to coordinate efforts together? We might want to develop a game for people to play visiting Gauteng, but some of our legislative environment doesn't allow us. And how do we get the private sector to contribute? What are some of the initiatives that are there to bring all the role players in place to ensure that this is not just government, but it's all role players?
Thank you, Barba. I was just taking down a couple of notes because I've seen from the chat in the last while since we started, and I'm just going to mention a couple of colleagues in the group who've been making really awesome suggestions. Roger, Aidan, Neil, Andrew, Nesang has just mentioned the role of youth in this as well. I was going to suggest, Barba, that one of the things that we do as GTA with our colleagues in this space is literally to convene another webinar, just as a starting point for a discussion around digitization within the tourism space and including our young people, but not confining it just to young people. And I think as one of our agencies within the Department of Economic Development stable within the province, we have an agency called the Innovation Hub, where we've seen some really phenomenal work coming out in terms of innovation, technology. And I think our colleagues, Roger, Aidan, Neil, Andrew, Nesang, come on board, help us. Let's have the conversation with the Innovation Hub. Let's look at what are the apps, what are the existing platforms that we can optimize on, whether it's a gaming app or using this digitization of tourism in some shape or form to bring in our young people within the tourism space so that we carve out a particular niche for them that can grow from strength to strength. But I think I'm quite excited at the idea of letting us have a conversation. Let's get that going as soon as possible, because I think with the partners in the webinar today, there's a lot of work that's happening currently and has been happening in the recent past that we could tap into, that we can leverage off of and use it as a springboard to propel us into a greater space for young people digitally. Thanks.
Absolutely, and we're looking forward quite with bated breath that conversation and the innovation from your side, colleagues, where you have facilities already running. Let's find a way to collaborate. We'll take time now to allow some members of the panel to raise in specific questions or make a commentary. Is there anyone from Citibank? Are there any specific, you will raise your hand in the facility there, then we can see, I can check the participants and then you can pose your question. Otherwise, let's continue to use the chat facility where we can provide rolling. We have Paul. Over to you, Paul.
Thank you very much. I just want to tell you that I started an online shopping mall in March last year to facilitate merchants moving online and to provide a one-stop online shopping destination for the convenience of consumers. And with the recession and the downgrading of South African economy and the coronavirus, it has now become an essential service and it's very topical. And I'm all about sharing and collaborating with other people. So I would like to offer my online shopping mall called BizHub Central SA as a platform. It's very affordable for anybody to come on board and get a foot in the door and to start learning how to market their businesses in an online environment. And I even have a subscription service they get 3 business ebooks every month that explain more and more about how to start and run an online business, particularly for those who are not familiar with the environment or the platform. So that is my offer, and I would like to, I've got a lot of people have given me their contact details, which I'm grateful for. I will get back to everybody, but again, like the other lady said, to have another Zoom call where we can talk about this kind of collaboration and sharing. It's no longer about being selfish and keeping everybody to ourselves. The more we can share our traffic, the more we can get sales and new business. And that is the lifeblood of every business, whether you are small or large.
Absolutely. Maybe Wendy, you can share some experience on how restaurants have been able to utilize technology. We've seen during the certain stages of the lockdown, restaurants be allowed to do deliveries, but some of the other restaurants are saying, hey, it's quite an expensive exercise to do. We are geared towards servicing people inside. How do we ensure that people are able to tap into these expanded ways of reaching the market and improving quality service to everyone?
You know, one of the things that we certainly have done as RASA is certainly to bring the affordability and availability of the opportunity for all restaurants to have the platform to do delivery and to do takeaways, and then the online reservations that will be part of us moving forward in the reopening of sit down. One of the things we found most was the cost of it was extremely high, and it was monopolized by major players. So on our assessment, we looked at it coming in at about 37 to 42% of the turnover that restaurants were making, and there was no relief from the third party guys to come in to say, look, they are prepared to reduce their rates at all. So it opened up a whole new mechanism, a new opportunity for a lot of other players to come on board. And we saw pertinent players that have come in from around about 10% right up to 15%. And we've seen a whole development of digitalization. Our restaurateurs are very tactile people, and they enjoy the engagement. So there's a lot of education and learning that is going forward in terms of changing their business model from having a doorman at the door to meet, greet and seat, now to taking reservations online. So it's not only come with the cost of it, it's also come with the transformation and the change to the inception of their business. I think when we see the reopening, we're certainly going to see a big movement to technology. So we've got lovely partners on board that have certainly come in with a very reduced price to understand, and have certainly made it their business to involve themselves in the rebuilding of the restaurant industry. So they've come up with very clever applications and concepts, which is very cost effective to restaurants. And we certainly are looking forward to restaurants using some of those. One of the most exciting projects we brought in is a little device that is in every single restaurant. When you walk in with your cell phone, the cell phone is available. The menu comes straight on the cell phone. So it's contactless, and it's also, you can do your credit card payments directly on it, and it's linked into the restaurant pay system. So we're certainly seeing that a lot of clever applications are coming on board that makes it available to restaurateurs that is also easy for them to use. And all those applications are available on our website, and they're also available through the medium of communication that we do. So we have advised all the members what we've got. If anybody wants to know about the other digital platforms we use, you're welcome to give me a shout.
Absolutely. We see all your questions coming in. Before we get to you, Suzanne, just to bring CEO Kona again, there is a growing, there's a question here, CEO, about tourism monitors. Where are they? What do they do? How can people reach them? You explained earlier on about how we are revisiting this program. Do you want to expand more?
Thank you, Barba. I was going to suggest that we have that conversation as well. I've seen Kulukele's questions around the monitors. So the GTA, as I've said, has worked in partnership with the National Department of Tourism as its implementing agent for Gauteng's implementation of the project. We do have around 180 monitors that were deployed from early 2018 up until I think it was the end of March when we went into lockdown, 2 different sites across the province. And as it was a pilot program, there were obstacles that were identified, and we worked through those with the Department of Tourism. So whilst the program as per NDT has been suspended given the lockdown and the difficulties that we are faced with, we do have plans with the NDT to roll out the program once the sector reopens and things return to some level of normalcy, hopefully sooner rather than later. I think we're all very eager for the sector to reopen so that life in tourism can continue. But essentially, Kulukele, and I've noted a couple of other questions around it, the program has been implemented in different provinces. As it is a pilot, there have been some challenges, and those are mitigated as and when we go through the program day to day. But we do have plans to resuscitate it again as soon as we are able to, and then to revive the program so that it has greater impact, greater output in terms of the tourism monitors, because ultimately, the tourism monitors in and of itself is leading up to helping these young people within the tourism space to open up their own businesses to some extent across the tourism value chain. So there's a lot of work that has to be done around the tourism monitors project and the phase 2, if we can call it that, of it. And perhaps it's another conversation we need to have right now, whilst we are waiting for the sector to open completely, to look at how do we collectively, as Destination Gauteng, make substantive inputs to the Department of Tourism in terms of the revival of the program and the phase 2 implementation, so that it does meet all of the requirements that we think it can meet, and looking at that as another platform for young people to become meaningfully engaged within the space. Thank you.
Absolutely. The opportunities are galore, and it's up to us how we utilize them. And these projects provide us with an opportunity to learn, to test. We can only test and learn if we are doing something. If they move out of our PowerPoints and our computers and they get into communities. Speaking about communities, Suzanne, how does your members, how does your association also bring on board ordinary communities whom are beneficiaries of our tourism marketing and development efforts to stimulate appreciation, but also to raise concerns as recipients of the services we provide?
Barba, excuse me, for us it comes back to representing all our different areas and all our different chapters. I saw Louise asking earlier as well about a similar webinar for accommodation providers. And Louise, just in between, sorry, left my video there. Louise, also check out the TBCSA protocols. It's also on the Tshwane Tourism website that I gave that address earlier. There's specific protocols that you can just keep the ones applicable to accommodation to make sure you can use that. Yes, and Baba, it's about all the different businesses and communicating so that we are all giving out the same message and reaching young people. We spoke a lot about young people earlier, and especially in this time of digital advancement, we need them so much because they are absolutely on the forefront of that innovation and that knowledge.
Absolutely. Young people are the future, and definitely no one can stop them. If you ignore them, you ignore them at your own peril. Let's continue to use our hashtag GP Tourism Engages, hashtag GP, hashtag Visit Gauteng. Once again, hashtag GP Tourism Engages. Let's share. We are also live on Facebook. We are taking some of the commentary directly from Facebook. There was a question about wedding venues and associations around weddings and the like. Just to indicate that our last webinar of this 4-part series will focus on business events and associations related to that sector. So we'll definitely be able to put that one up, but we have also referred some of your inputs to our colleagues that are dealing with business events. We note that in many parts of the province, we have stunning venues, and weddings plays a crucial role in generating demands. And speaking about leveraging such facilities, I was talking to other young people the other day and saying, specialize in taking wedding pictures, but not only just wedding. We pride ourselves with being a cosmopolitan city, embracing all diversities. You can imagine others specializing in LGBTIQ+ weddings and taking pictures, offering their services. So a message from this sector is that opportunities are available. These associations, these players that are here are ready to work with you to make sure that you are able to be part of the value chain in tourism. We are going towards the end of our session, so I'm going to ask each of our panel members to also wrap up, indicate the way forward. How do they envisage all of us here playing a collective role toward, firstly, assisting you as an organization, secondly, assisting our communities to appreciate tourism better, lastly, how do we communicate and coordinate relief measures and information? Let's start with you, Nesang.
Thank you, Baba. In terms of the way forward, as we close, part of the role of associations and forums is to really do an analysis of the current state of all businesses or members that sit in their forums. Because to reignite, we need to understand the current challenges and the picture that's there. So that forums and associations, for instance, with the relief fund that has been done by the tourism department, the conversation is to say, did that relief fund pay for your bills, or did it pay for you to maintain and be ready for the reopening of the sector? So did the fund go to debt that has been in the business, or did it really assist you in preparing for the reopening of the sector? But also to say, forums and associations need to take advantage of the eagerness and diversity of young people in terms of informing the future of how businesses relate to tourism, but how young people can add in some of the innovations that are needed to answer some of the questions that must be prioritized, specifically in Africa, but in South Africa. But also to say, association forums must look at the Growing Gauteng Together document that's out there now, that paints a picture of where we are going for 2030, and really have conversation around, does the document speak to them, and how does it inform the role of tourism in a broad economic sense? I think I'll leave it at that, Dala.
Okay, Suzanne?
I think I want to say in closing, guys, we are all here on the panel today to encourage you and to give you advice and to tell you what we are doing. But I also pick up quite a bit of frustration in the comments. And I think it's good that we all remember and remind ourselves, this is the first time we are dealing with this. We are figuring it out as we go along. And the best way to do that is with our colleagues and with our industry and with our associations. Speak to each other, get in touch with the contacts that you made now in this chat on the side where people have been collaborating and networking a bit. Contact the associations, make sure you have the protocols that are out already. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. But it's okay to be frustrated, we all are. It's a very difficult time, you are not alone. But reach out and help others where you can, and then I'm sure someone else will be able to help you as well.
Thank you so much, Susan. Wendy, your closing shot, and how can your association also work with other associations? Here I'm thinking of tour guides, tour operators, whom we had wanted to have them here, and how do we plug them out within your value chain so that they are able to increase the entire offering, not just inside the restaurant, but the entire value chain that creates a memorable experience?
Absolutely. You know, I think this is a very engaging session. I thank you for inviting us along. We certainly invite every collaborated relationship that is available out there, whether it be an association or a private business, that certainly can offer any assistance that will benefit the restaurant industry. You know, at this point in time, it's crucial that we save the restaurant industry and we bring as many people back to work. And there's an imminent plan, and then obviously post getting the restaurants open, we certainly need to look at a recovery plan on how we save many of the restaurants going forward. And I think we can't do it alone. We certainly as an industry need to talk, and we need to look at clever opportunities on how we save as many restaurants as possible. We need to drive customer expectations. We need to reinvent the business model of restaurants. We certainly need to encourage restaurateurs to talk to us about their leases. It's very important that we, most importantly, help restaurateurs in terms of not going back to these leases. We've got Mooney Ford on our panel. They are very happy to help restaurants with the negotiations on the re-signing of their leases, cancellation of their leases, or looking at rental reductions permanently. So these are imminent conversations that we need to have. The staff morale is very, very important for us in the retraining and the bringing of those businesses back to life with a way forward where we actually get staff to feel good about what is happening and to be confident. There's going to be a lot of difficulty in moving forward with bringing staff back to work. We are going to continue to engage with suppliers in terms of preferential rate, the municipalities in terms of the high utility costs, and obviously moving forward, bringing pertinent information on how we can certainly engage with restaurateurs. And the most important thing is that we have to be able to invite restaurateurs who have been innovative, not to be subjected to discrimination and have their restaurants closed down at a time like this when they have come up with clever solutions that could be a new norm and moving forward. So we need to have more pertinent conversations in moving forward. Tourism absolutely plays a vital part, and it's bringing all parts of local tourism together and looking for opportunities, whether it is bicycles or whether it is hiking or whether it is food fairs or whether it is something to certainly raise the platform of domestic tourism in South Africa and find clever ways that is also becomes budget conscientious. We will certainly continue to talk to restaurants about remodeling their menus and readjusting pricing structures and looking at alternative supplies. We've got a lot of shortage of supplies currently in South Africa that we can't get our hands on. And we also need to look at the management of food prices moving forward that doesn't become so expensive to eat out in restaurants. So what we do have at the moment, we've got a lot of pertinent parts that we're collectively looking for information. We've put a little Facebook page out that's available for the industry. Anybody that needs employment that has been retrenched, to have them on that so we can still keep the critical skills and put training out to that Facebook page and look at the experiences on it. And we've got another Facebook page, which is also critical for us at this time, to understand which restaurants and iconic restaurants have closed, that we can take that collective information back to local tourism and to the regional parts, and then also back to the national department in terms of how we're going to revive these restaurants that have closed. So we invite anybody to be part of the association. You're welcome to contact me at any time, join our WhatsApp lines, join our forums of communication. We've got our website, we've got our Facebook, and we certainly have our WhatsApp groups. And we invite anybody who feels that they've got a product that can benefit the restaurateurs at this time to allow us to have a look at the methodology used to see if it is viable for us. And
thank you so much.
With you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wendy. And I'm definitely sure everybody who is here and who are joining from everywhere in the world will really take up the offer from your side. CEO Kona, in your closing, associations are indicating their willingness to collaborate, to partner with you, with your organization. Your closing shots in relation to how do we become tourism strong, how do we gear for opening, but how do we also make sure that we open cautiously, mindful of balancing health and livelihoods.
Thanks, Barba. I think one of the immediate thoughts that came to mind throughout the conversation was that I think we need a more consistent, continuous engagement with our associations within each of the corridors. So immediately I would suggest that we start looking at scheduling similar webinars or Zoom chats with each of the associations in all of the corridors. I think that enables us as GTA to have a better understanding of the unique issues, but also the general issues that we are all confronting at this point in time. And I think it will also be important, Barba and colleagues, for us to bring in our Department of Economic Development. I think we need to communicate a little bit more as GTA in terms of the dual responsibilities we have between the GTA and the Department of Economic Development, because I think it was Susan that mentioned earlier, we are all frustrated, and a number of the chat messages that we've seen come through on the group is testimony to that. And I think if we understand who we are in the partnership, we are better able to direct our efforts and put initiatives in place. So I think as and when we engage the associations, we need to bring in our shareholder department, who does play a key role within the space as well. And I think earlier on, as colleagues were talking around marketing destination, Gauteng domestically, but also across the continent, I think that requires a concerted effort from all of us, because it stands us all in good stead to work as one, and in a more collaborative manner in terms of marketing the destination and profiling the destination, so that we have an uptake in that regard. I do look forward to, Barba, the suggested webinars or Zoom calls that come out of this conversation, especially around the digitization of the space and working with partners that we've mentioned earlier on in that regard. But I think it's quite interesting, and it's heartwarming to see that there is this consensus that we all need to work together. I mean, I think we started off saying that tourism is government-led, industry-driven, but it is community-based, and we are all in it together. And we need to understand that without each one of us as a key role player, we're not going to move ahead in the way that we need to get ourselves out of this successfully. I think the tourism monitors conversation is an important one to be had. And I think we need to pick up on that as soon as possible as well. And I've seen also, Barba, what we've been trying to do in recent months is to start reaching out more. I think there was a comment on the chat about when GTA was in Newtown, there used to be more stakeholder engagement sessions. And I think now is an opportune time for us to resuscitate that. There was also a conversation to be had about the visitor information centers, where we come from, where we are at the moment, and how we are moving forward, because we have done quite a bit of work around that. But again, it highlights that we do so much, but it's not in the public space, and we don't share that information. So that information sharing across the board is highlighted for me in this session. And then just to end of saying that we do have our marketing committee chairperson, Ms. Ravele from the board, who has been with us throughout this webinar. And we do thank our board as GTA for their continuous direction and leadership on all matters related to tourism, especially during this difficult time. But just to end of saying that it's been great. I've enjoyed the session, and I think that there are many things that can come out of this that we can take forward to turn the tide for Destination Gauteng. Thank you.
Thank you so much, CEO. And I'm not going to spoil those closing remarks, just to emphasize that we will be packaging a newsletter that summarizes some of this and share with members. So some of those inputs, keep them coming. Use the hashtag GP Engages, GP Tourism Engages, hashtag Visit Gauteng. Use the same social media platform you have been reaching us to share more information. In less than a week's time, we will have packaged all the information and share them back to you. We have other 2 webinars coming in. We're going to be focusing on the tourism carriers, the transport sector, the airlines, and please do join us. We'll also close up with a webinar on the business events. As we know, Gauteng is the hub of business events, lifestyle, and entertainment. So once again, these webinars, these sectors have a dual relations with where you guys are in relation to your different association. Special thanks to our panelists, Susan, Ms. Wendy, CEO Kona, Nesang. We also like to thank our technical team that has been really working hard to ensure that we have a record attendance today and we continue to grow. We also like to thank all of you from everywhere you are for joining in these conversations, not only just to listen to the panelists, but to become active participants. With your input, with your insights, we can all grow and continue to become tourism strong. Let's keep the conversation going on our socials. Once again, from Gauteng Tourism, thank you very much, and let's meet at the coming webinars. Thank you very much. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Barba. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.